In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues of the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. Okay, good evening. Sorry I'm late. So we are on, how about session 8, pointing out related to stillness and movement on 519. All right. Okay, now we cleared up everything last week, right? So it's all, we know, we're very clear on what stillness and movement are, right? They're very separate. Sue.
I wonder if we could start with 7 again, because it's so challenging. Or should we wait till we review? That's okay too.
7.
It is a very challenging one.
Okay, we can go through that quickly. Particularly since we're all clear on the ones that go before that. Non-conceptuality, conceptuality, stillness, and movement. Those are the key ones, right? Okay, so 517, the third set of pointing out instructions introduces the inseparability of appearances and mind in relation to appearances. So, let's see if we can find the second and the first sets. So we're in, it starts on page 508, looking with stillness. Oh, these are the lookings, not the pointing outs, right? I see. So the first pointing out is on 513. And that's pointing out instructions in relation to stillness. Stillness is when our mind has no thoughts, right? And then pointing out in relation to non-conceptuality, and conceptuality is the second one. The second one on 516 cuts through a basis and a root. The set is given in relation to non-conceptuality and in relation to movement or thoughts. Okay, and then the 7 is pointing out in relation to appearances and body. So once again, conceptuality, non-conceptuality is the second one, and the first one is stillness. Just to briefly go back to that on 513. After having looked, or those who have looked at the nature of stillness, movement, and so forth, and practiced those key instructions for mind, probably will not need pointing out instructions. So we should just skip this whole section, right? Recognition of mind's nature will emerge spontaneously from within. Some, however, may have their recognition but not know it. Others who have an intellectual understanding or dry sense based on what they've heard and the desire for excellent experiences and realizations to quickly develop may express themselves flawlessly using Dharma terminology despite not having had any experiences. Since there are such dangers, gurus must differentiate between these kinds of practitioners, and students must also engage the practice by penetrating its essential points. The first way to give the pointing out instructions relates to the first approach of looking at the nature using the ways of looking at the nature of the resting mind, and so forth, as was described above. In other words, in the Vipassana section, which briefly had 4 sections: looking with stillness, looking with movement, looking with appearances and body, and then looking with stillness and movement, right? Okay, so the first way to get pointed out relates to the first approach of looking at the nature. Use the ways of looking at the nature of the resting mind and so forth, as described above. The nature of stillness is brilliant, sharp, and is a brilliant, sharp, and naked state, not mere emptiness. Within that state of stillness, the unidentified mind is vivid, open, stark, crisp, and relaxed. Okay, so that is pointing out the still mind, the brilliant, clear, open, stark, relaxed, clear mind. And it gives different ways on the bottom of 514 in order to bring that about. Now what is to be pointed out is as follows. Generally speaking, meditation consists of shamatha and vipassana. When your mind remains relaxed in its natural condition, all thoughts are pacified in their own place, and mind rests clearly and quietly in its natural state. Your mind is not engaged in the distractions of worldly life. It is comfortable and buoyant, and so forth. That is exceptional shamatha. It is primarily an experience, and while it does not function as realization, it is essential. So he's referring to the triad of understanding, experience, and realization. So having understood the whole scheme, then our shamatha gradually deepens over time, and we experience this state that he describes with the mind relaxing. To go back to the page before 514 on the bottom, your mind is relaxed in its natural conditions, and all thoughts are pacified in their own place, and mind rests clearly and quietly in its natural state. By sustaining shamatha, so back on 515 up top, without fixation and not
I
letting
lost audio.
Oh, nothing? How's that?
I can hear you still.
I hear you.
I hear you fine.
Huh. Okay, but Rob, good?
Yeah, better now.
Okay, sorry about that. By sustaining shamatha without fixation and not letting it slip into dullness, agitation, or a neutral state of indifference, you see that the nature of mind is free from being something that can be brought about or described as having a color or shape, such that you would say, it is this way. Is anyone using the digital version? Are you able to follow where we are, Barbara? So we're in the main practice of Wangchuk Dorje's text. At the very back of the book, the second of the 2 texts in the book, we're in the main practice. And the main practice has shamatha and then vipassana. And vipassana has 2 types of things. It has looking and pointing out. And so we're in the point. It says just 5, pointing out instructions in relation to stillness.
But what page is it? Usually the pages correspond. I haven't had a problem all
Oh,
along.
okay.
Right
5:15.
now I am having a problem.
Okay, 5:15.
I'll find it in a second, I'm sure. It's been easy. I haven't really had a problem before.
Okay, good.
Sorry.
Okay. By sustaining shamatha without fixation and not letting it slip into dullness, agitation, or a neutral state of indifference, you see that the nature of mind is free from being something that can be thought about or described as having a color shape, such that you could say, it is this way. Like the pleasure experienced by a young person, what you know and experience isn't something that you can describe as an intellectual object saying, it's like this. It is unified clarity and emptiness without identification or the extremes of conceptual elaborations. It cannot be altered by any dharmic concepts or be sullied by worldly ideas. So, the ineffability of direct experience, right? And in this case, the direct experience is of the nature of mind. A mental state that is not affected by stagnant non-conceptuality and shamatha is naturally settled and free in its own place. It is the root of all excellent qualities. That is called ordinary mind, or just mind. Sort of like nothing special. It's just like, this is the way, the true nature of mind. Hi, Lindsay. So we are, and maybe Cynthia, we are on page 515 in the middle of that first big paragraph. Or towards the end of it. It is the root of all excellent qualities. That is just mind, not recognizing it is to be ignorant. And in samsara, recognition is called awareness, wisdom, or nirvana. Connate wisdom, the intrinsic state, luminosity, or vipassana. All these different names for the same experience, ranging from vipassana, which is, it's sort of a rather intermediate level experience of meditation, all the way up to nirvana. Now, those are the primary indications of the distinction between samsara and nirvana. Having received pointing out instructions from the guru, the disciple's recognition is like that of reuniting with an old friend. That recognition is called recognizing the mind. So up above we had experience, and now we have recognition. Not quite realization yet, but it doesn't occur because the disciple has great prajna, because the guru is skilled in giving instructions. It occurs because this is how the mind has always been. Previously, that wasn't recognized because it was obscured by mental afflictions and thoughts. Now, since thoughts are interrupted, the nature of mind has been pointed out. There is recognition. This unidentified, vibrant clarity of mind is its nature. While not existing, it vividly appears. That is mind's characteristic. If there can be one thing that be like the takeaway from all of this, I think that would be it. That while not existing, it vividly appears. That is the nature of mind, right? We can't find it, but we can't get away from it. It's here, where is it? The essence of emptiness, clarity, and awareness. So those three qualities, emptiness, meaning like it has no essence. You can't find any location, basis, root, coming and going of the mind. It's clarity, meaning it clearly represents whatever appears in it. It's not like things appear and they're obscured by other things. Everything that is in the mind is clearly appearing. And awareness is that there's a knowing of what is in the mind, of what the mind is minding all the time. said when we're asleep, sorry, when we're awake, there's this minding that goes on, this awareness that goes on. And it doesn't seem like it goes from one side to the other, from inside out, from outside in, from up or down. It's just like the whole thing is pervaded by those three qualities of emptiness, clarity, and awareness. And altogether they sparkle, they're vivid, and they're continuous. That is mind's essence. If you maintain a naked recognition of that at all times without wavering, one of the unimaginable benefits is that Vipassana will dawn within stillness. So that, I said, there's one takeaway while not existing, it vividly appears. That is mind's characteristic. One practice to do all the time, which is maintaining a naked recognition of that existing and not existing but vividly appearing mind. Just that practice all day long, everything you do. If we could do that all the time, we would develop very quickly. So even when you're put on the spot, you have to say something, do something, figure something out. Drive, walk, talk, chew bubblegum, or whatever it is. If you can do that at the same time, like can I do that right now while I'm talking? Can you do that right now while you're listening? It doesn't impede whatever else is going on, is the idea, right? Since that is the recognition of what is pointed out, the nature of mind during stillness, it is the first set of the actual pointed out instructions. It is important to penetrate the vital points, bringing them into experience and maintain recognition constantly. Therefore, recognize and sustain that. So that's the first glimpse of the nature of mind, is seeing the mind in this way. He's calling that stillness. It doesn't have to actually be still without thoughts, but there's, no matter what's going on in your mind, you're looking at it in a way that feels like stillness. Right?
The looking part that's still.
The looking is still, yeah, that's good.
It's
Thank
not
you.
really that the mind is still. It's that your attention is still enough to notice.
Lori?
I just think stillness is uh uh what do you call it? It's almost like a mode or a state of mind where there are less thoughts, and it's a continuum. So, there's always something going on, but when you're talking about stillness, I just think there's less to.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Like the idea that there could be no thoughts and only no thoughts makes stillness, I think, is not totally accurate.
Right,
But
but it's a
there,
relative thing, and we can recognize that. We can, if we pay attention, we can identify. Well, this seems like stillness versus this. Now I've got lots of thoughts going on, and I'm you know lots of movement.
but
That's
what Robert's getting at is there's sort of a, a a shift that one can do where you experience the sense of experiencing, and that sense of experiencing has a still quality to it, whether it's experiencing a few thoughts or no thoughts. It's hard to have that sense of stillness when there's lots of thoughts. It is possible once you are sort of more stable in it. It's possible, but so there's sort of this quality of there's subject and object, and we can talk about the object like the mental contents Is there a lot of thought activity or little? A lot of thought activity we'd call movement, a little we'd call stillness. And then there's the subject side, and the subject side is when we get caught by thought, then we're in movement. Whether it's a lot of thought or a little thought or one thought. And when we don't get caught by thought, we experience the stillness of that awareness. If that makes any sense. Well, let's see if that pans out. Let's see. It is important to penetrate the vital points, bring them into experience, and maintain recognition constantly. Therefore, recognize and sustain them. The vital points, I think what we just went through, are the vital points. Okay, so then the sixth, pointing out in relation to concept and non-concept. The first, non-conceptuality, looking at mind in a non-conceptual state. Quiet, vibrantly clear stillness, free from dullness or agitation, without even the thought, this is what is thought of as being color or shape, with what has no arising. This is what is thought of as being without color or shape, what has no arising or ceasing. When there is something known without any arising or ceasing, Vipassana has dawned within non-conceptuality. So, looking at mind in a non-conceptual state, quiet, vibrant, clear stillness, free from dullness, agitation, there is not even the thought, this is what is thought of as being without color and shape, what has no arising or ceasing. So the awareness is non-conceptual. The awareness does not label what's going on. There's no like commentary, right? We totally dropped the commentary. When there is something known without any arising or ceasing. So what can we know without arising and ceasing? What is there that doesn't arise or cease?
The true nature
Of
emptiness, luminosity, of, just the essence of what something is. Because since everything has the same essence, if you're really resting in that essence, then this thing or that thing, you might see them, but they are essentially.
So when there is something known without any arising or ceasing.
You know that you know.
We know.
And that's what it is. You're just
knowing that we're knowing.
Yeah.
Mary Beth. You had raised your hand, right?
Well, I mean, don't we believe that like the Buddha mind, Buddha nature doesn't have a rising and ceasing? So
yeah, that's one thing, so to speak, that doesn't arise and ceases. The Buddha's mind. So are we seeing the Buddha's mind?
well, I mean, in the sense that like that it's the same, whatever of our mind that we are trying to see is the same as the Buddha's mind, sort of.
Yeah, I think so. There's some small part of our mind that's like his, maybe, or hers.
Well, the potential has that, that seed is covered up and we're trying to let it shine.
Yeah. Sentient. Thank you.
Well, at risk of using jargon, one could say being therefore falling into all the flaws that the teacher should be looking for, the abiding nature.
of
Of mind?
mind. I think so. I think you're all sort of saying the same thing.
Right. I just, that's why I
Yeah,
said,
just to sort of clarify, or sum it up. Yeah, I think that's the main thing that's without arising or ceasing is the abiding nature of mind. So when there's something known without any arising or ceasing, the abiding nature of mind, Vipassana has dawned within non-conceptuality. Conceptuality, second. Those who say all movements of thoughts are empty, free from arising or cessation, may just be using the jargon of emptiness. If thoughts vanish without any trace, without their arising, abiding, or ceasing shape or color being identified, a little experience of Vipassana in relation to thoughts has developed. So, interestingly, thoughts, if thoughts vanish without their arising, abiding, or ceasing being identified, the implication is that thoughts do have an arising, abiding, and ceasing, whereas the abiding nature of mind doesn't, right? Which is a little confusing.
I think it's just hard to describe.
Yeah,
Because I think we would all agree that we don't have all the same thoughts all the time in our mind, right? There's sometimes we
yeah,
don't
thoughts
remember
change.
what we were thinking from the day before, or. So they're not
Sometimes.
really a thing that can arise and disappear. They're not really that, but you have to have some way of describing the fact that it's what I'm thinking now is not what I was thinking 10 minutes ago, or you know what I mean? It's just there has to be some way to describe it, describe that experience.
Yeah, in other words, it may not be as literal as what I was saying. Cynthia.
I guess I thought that that sentence just seemed to be talking about that it's the case where thoughts are, there's, that it's so, like such a light touch, you might say, of the thought that, because it says without all of that being identified. So it's not, it never solidifies enough into having a sense of arising, abiding, and ceasing. It's more like it just, I think Philip Rinpoche sometimes, what is the term he uses? Just like on the verge, when it's the thought is just on the verge of coming out, he has, I can't remember the word he used for that. So it's like you don't ever, it never comes to the full, experience of arising and abiding and ceasing. And so obviously we're not latching onto them in that case.
Okay, well, let's keep going and see how it unfolds. If the arising of a thought and its freeing are simultaneous, without being identified as such, without even the thought, there's nothing to be identified. So we're freeing thought without, like, deliberately saying or thinking I have to free this thought and doing that, with no sense of that being significant. It's not a big deal. No celebration. And with no clinging. That is recognition of what is being pointed out. Furthermore, thoughts and the objects of thoughts, the mind at rest and in motion, a previous state of mind or previous thoughts are neither good nor bad. They are not different in even the slightest way. They are realized to be naked clarity awareness. It is not that thoughts become empty clarity after they are drawn in. We capture them and then they become naked clarity. No. Or we disperse them and then they become naked clarity. No. Or after they disappear, the very thought that suddenly appears is realized to be or manifests as empty clarity. That is recognition of what is being pointed out. which is what he said at the last paragraph. Now, all three, the movements of thoughts, stillness, and the nature of thoughts themselves, are stripped down to empty clarity. There are no differences at all beyond those created by the mind misinterpreting and grasping at its own lack of recognition of the nature of thoughts and non-conceptuality. Previously, since you did not recognize the nature of thoughts, they were not meditation, they were ignorance. Now when you do recognize that thoughts themselves are meditation and are awareness, wisdom, now make thoughts the basis of your meditation. Earlier, thoughts obscured themselves and you did not see their nature. What is superior to meditating upon? Interestingly, so earlier thoughts obscured themselves and you did not see their nature. They obscured themselves. They didn't obscure anyone else.
Well, right. I mean, that's just another way of saying being caught up in them.
It is. What is superior to meditating upon non-conceptuality is now knowing how to meditate on concepts. You know, it's sort of nice to meditate on the abiding nature when there's no concepts. But can we do that when there's concepts? Recognize the nature of whatever thoughts arise. If thoughts don't arise, remain within their not arising. You need not provoke them. If they arise, rest right within their arising. You need not dissolve them. Don't create hopes and fears. Make thoughts the essence of your meditation. Thoughts are not beyond the mind. Thoughts are not beyond the mind. There's, the mind being the one experiencing the thoughts. We experience them as if there's something different, but they aren't. Mind self-liberates in this way. Its essence is naked, clarity, emptiness, the Dharmakaya, which is, I think, what Mary Beth was talking about before. The Buddha within, with nothing to be liberated or means of liberation. The Dharmakaya doesn't need to be liberated. It's already the Dharmakaya. Its essence, the essence of mind, is Dharmakaya. There's a chant that says that, isn't there? Realizing that is the dawning of Vipassana within thoughts. It is the recognition of the unification of clarity and emptiness as the Dharmakaya. In brief, recognize the nature of whatever arises. Rest right within that, sustaining it without contrivance, without wandering. That is the set of the actual pointing, second set of the actual pointing out instructions. Recognition is not enough, you must sustain it. Little glimpse is not really recognition, that's really like experience. But sustaining it is recognition, I guess. 7, pointing out instructions in relation to appearances and body. The third set introduces the inseparability of appearances and mind in relation to appearances. Earlier, he went through the inseparability of stillness and movement in relation to movement. He went through the inseparability of non-conceptuality and conceptuality in relation to concepts. And now we're talking about sense experience. Look at any of the 5 types of external objects. You see that objects are unceasing and transparent. Without the thought, that thing is out there. There's something out there. The mind that looks at them is free without grasping. Those two are neither the same nor different. The mind and them are neither the same nor different. There is not even the thought that they are neither the same nor different. Not being same or different, body and mind are inseparable. They are unified. Clarity, emptiness, appearance, emptiness, like the moon reflected in water. Sensations such as of hot and cold are also appearances. It is simply that, not knowing them to be appearance emptiness, the mind endlessly labels them and grasps at them, realizing that in actuality there is no basis of designation for the sensations experienced by the body or mind. Realize that in actuality there is no basis of designation for the sensations experienced. So we have experiences of various things that seem to be experienced based on some basis of designation, like we see colors and we think about flowers, we see shapes and we think of people, chairs and tables and so forth. Those are the basis of designation. But in reality, there's no basis of designation for the sensations experienced. So there's no tables and chairs that are the basis of designation.
So is the is what he's pointing to the labeling, or actually just that the experience of objects or sound are thoughts? You know, is it that there is, I don't know, this one is hard for me.
There's no outer objects.
There are no outer objects. So is there, so you have eyes that pick up light, but there are no eyes.
And there's no
And
light.
there is no light.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard one.
Yeah. It's sort of like the Heart Sutra, right? There's no eye, no ear, no
Right.
nose,
So sometimes you
no
can sort of
body, no mind,
sit back
no
and,
appearance.
you know, I don't know, be behind it, and there's things appearing. And but what's different about appearance and body than the other two things we've gone through? Why is this its own thing?
Oh, because we are so firmly
Right.
entrenched in the belief in external phenomena.
Right. So it's like peeling it down, and now we've gotten to this. And we can't get
Yeah, yeah, we did we worked on what we normally think of internal experiences of thoughts and stillness, concepts and non-concepts, and now let's work on what we think are external phenomena that we experience as.
External phenomena are also internal experiences.
There are no external phenomena. It's all interior.
All internal
Interiors.
experience. It's all internal experience, and we've been trained to interpret them in certain ways.
Yeah. So all you need is an interior decorator. You don't need an external.
Why do you say it's internal? Isn't that imply an external?
Well, that's a good point. There's no internal.
So
No
It's non-internal.
internal in this case is a synonym for mind.
You could think of it as display of mind. It's often the way it's talked about, that where instead of having the concept that, so in one sense, even though we were saying no light, it just means there isn't a light that's a thing. There may be an experience of light, which is a mental experience.
And so how is that different than the conceptuality thing we just looked at.
It's basically similar. We're just working with different concepts of the mind only world. Some people call it mind only, by the way, right? We've heard that.
Or if you think about the six sense, what we
Right.
think six senses and the six sense objects.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways here, what we were talking about with conceptuality would be the mental objects.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And now we're talking about all the things that we think of as being the sense objects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks.
One way that I think of this that might be helpful is I don't I kind of remain agnostic about what's really out there, but I am convinced, not that I always see it this way, but through examples I've heard, it is that you can't get beyond the mind that senses whatever. Like you think you're looking at things objectively, and you never are. They are the sensations are, yeah, they're inseparable from the mind that experiences them. So whatever is out there, I can't see it without mind. And mind plays like a big role in how we experience things. I don't know if that helped, but so don't worry so much about what is out there actually, but just know that the mind is doing heavy lifting about it. It's really influencing everything we experience.
Okay, good. Direct your gaze and attention to whatever appears. It's a little difficult to do. Would you do it simultaneously or sequentially? Then relax somewhat and rest. At first, the details of those objects will be clear next. Since you may not really want to keep looking, you might feel nauseous or find that your vision has gone numb. And so objects vanish on their own. We talked about this vanishing act. The vanishing of the sense of object. Then when you look again for a while, appearances become vivid with no clinging. They vanish into their own state. At that point, if you and appearances are inseparable, vivid appearance emptiness without being objects, you are experiencing the reflexive appearances of the abiding state, the characteristics of mind. External appearances and the internal mind are not different. The self-radiance of mind manifests freely. When appearances are grasped as objects, the perceiving mind is deluded. At that time, it is not that appearances have become something separate. They appear as external objects because the mind has deluded itself.
I have a question. So, in terms of the yogas, are we now at freedom of elaborations? Freedom from elaborations?
Yeah, he doesn't correlate these with the yogas, and we'll see in the next section. He talks about basically like you're enlightened now, and it's a little bit unclear where we are on the path, whether we're like now on the beginning of the path, like path of seeing, which would sort of be freedom from elaborations, or whether we're at non-meditation. But it certainly seems like we're at freedom from elaboration, as Rob said at this point, which is experiencing the empty, well, the true nature of reality.
But since this is up sort of about the senses, is it, that top paragraph there, is it like this idea of sacred world? Like this idea of things, you feel nauseous and then everything disappears and then it comes back and it's just vivid and, like there's this, it's almost like you're seeing without obscuration the world. But there is no world. So it's a little confusing, but it seems like this one is talking about seeing the world in some special way.
Well, let's keep going with it and see how it unfolds. Let's see. At that point, if you and appearances are inseparable, vivid appearance emptiness without being objects, you are experiencing the reflexive appearances of the abiding state, the characteristics of mind. External appearances and the internal mind are not different. The self-radiance of mind manifests freely. When appearances are grasped as objects, the perceiving mind is deluded. At that time, it is not that appearances have become something separate. They appear as external objects because the mind has deluded itself. Appearances are simply mental appearances. Appearances, or objects, do not have even the slightest bit of existence as some object that is other than mind. Previously being obscured by ignorance for the mind's grasping, you did not see the nature of appearances. Now, having severed the continuum of fixed conceptuality, you recognize the nature without an object. You recognize the nature that is the reality where there's no subjects and objects. Not fixating on appearances, they appear utterly empty and vividly without being objects. This is referred to as the connateness of appearances, is the radiance of the Dharmakaya, the co-emergence of appearances. Their inseparable empty clarity is the radiance of the Dharmakaya. Now sustain this without fabrication. Sustain this without talking ourselves into it, right? Or using some technique to experience appearance in a certain way. Let your 6 modes of consciousness be free. Sustain your practice right with appearances. In that state, rest your mind without contrivance in its fundamental state, buoyant, at ease. Don't try to deliberately make that into something ecstatic, dazzling, void, or fantastic. That would be like trying to crank up sacred world, right? Don't dream about the past. Don't speculate about the future. Don't ponder the present. Don't meditate on intellectual constructs. Don't engage in analysis about what is or is not. That's a familiar list, huh?
It's now. It's like now follow these instructions at this point.
When mind is naturally settled, loose and fresh with no effort or caretaking, it rests in its own nature. Remain in the state of the inseparability of appearances and emptiness, the inseparability of sound and emptiness, the inseparability of bliss and emptiness, the inseparability of awareness and emptiness, and the inseparability of clarity and emptiness. That's a lot of inseparabilities, as if they were separate things. Appearances, sound, bliss, awareness, and clarity. The direct realization of the inseparability of appearances and emptiness with no blocking of or grasping onto appearances is the dawning of Vipassana within appearances. It is the recognition of the unification of appearances and emptiness as the Dharmakaya on the basis of continuously sustaining that special experiences and realizations will develop. Now we have hope and fear. Those are the pointing out instructions given in relation to appearances, the third set of pointing out instructions. Cultivate them in your practice. That was the 7th session. 8, pointing out instructions in relation to stillness and movement. Having looked at stillness and movements in terms of whether they are the same or different, the corresponding pointing out instructions are as follows. When you investigate the sameness or difference of stillness and movement, once you understand that thoughts are meditation, stillness and movements are nothing but the same. Bye, Lori. Take care. When you investigate the sameness or difference of stillness and movement, once you understand that thoughts are meditation, stillness and movements are nothing but the same thing. We talked about that a little
all this
last
time
week.
that we've wasted, huh?
We should have just peeked ahead, right?
Huh.
They manifest in alternation. When there's stillness, there is no movement. When there is movement, there is no stillness. So, I know I was among those who felt like when there was movement, there was still some stillness. And, we talked about the snow globe, and like the stillness is the liquid and the movement is the flakes. So now we're talking about the what?
A pulse.
A pulse. Snow globes have a pulse?
No, but the stillness and the movement being the same.
Is a pulse. They alternate? Or when
Pulse.
there's a pulse, it turns into movement, and in between pulses, there's stillness. Something like that.
No globe, no flake.
There is no globe, there is no flip. Let's see, as for their agent, everybody's got an agent, right? You got to have an agent. You need a good agent to succeed in Mahamudra practice. They are created by one mind. They are created by one mind. Stillness and movement are created by one mind of one individual. The nature of both is nothing other than naked, empty clarity. It's not that you draw on your thoughts and see them as naked clarity, nor is it that after thoughts or recollections disappear, they become empty clarity. When you realize, or it is that a suddenly arising thought is itself naked, empty clarity. It's a little bit of a funny sentence. It's like an option. When you realize that a suddenly arising thought itself is naked and empty clarity, or when a suddenly arising thought just is empty clarity, you know the abiding state of mind. That is called the collapse of the distinction between stillness and movement. Therefore, whether your mind rests quietly in a non-conceptual and clear state, moves with lots of thoughts and questions, or is seen to be the essence of the thoughts themselves, It is nothing other than naked, empty clarity. So what do you got? Naked, empty clarity.
Well,
That was like
it
a
just seems
giveaway.
like,
Come on.
but why the sentence, they manifest in alternation, when everything else is saying, no, they're the same. So why do they?
Their essence is the same, right?
Yeah, but so why? I just don't get that part of it. But if it seems like it's not alternating, they're just both present. So, and then he seems to say that it collapsed there is no distinction. So how can they alternate? There's no distinction. So how could it alternate?
Well, sometimes there's visual appearances, and sometimes there's sound, and sometimes there's smell. Those are not separate appearances. Those are not separate things, but they do alternate. Sometimes there's sound, sometimes there's sights, sometimes there's tastes.
So that goes back to the...
So sometimes there's stillness, and sometimes there's movement. It's a big ocean. Sometimes it's still, sometimes
that goes back to number 7, which is the hard one for me.
Yeah.
Other than that, when it comes to thoughts, thoughts and stillness, it's not a problem.
Appearances.
This sort of goes back to the ocean metaphor. It's all water.
It's all water, yeah.
But within that water, some of it manifests with what looks like waves, and some of it manifests without that. So
right, it's a delight, or not. It could be horrible.
It's all water under the bridge.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, it's just that sense that the water is like the essence aspect of it.
Yeah.
Now you realize that, in fact, all objects and appearances have no existence other than as the magical display of mind, like the relationship between waves and water. You have recognized the pointing out that appearances are mind. So now he's going through this famous scheme of 4 stages of pointing out, famous in the Kagyu tradition. The first stage is all appearances are mind. Mind only. Through examining the nature of that mind in terms of going, abiding, and arising, you realize that it does not exist anywhere. Like horses and elephants and dreams, it does not actually exist. You have recognized the pointing out that mind is empty. That's the second pointing out of the 4-fold pointing out. And these are very similar or identical to the 4 bodhicitta slogans in the system of 7 points and 59 slogans in the tradition of the Kadampas, or Tisha as we know it. Mind, what is it? First one is all dharmas are dreams, something like that. Second one, no. But it's the first one.
I don't know, but
the nature of
the second one is to regard
all dharmas
as dreams. And then the third one and the fourth one and the fifth one, but the first one is
rest in nature of...
No, I said the first one of the meditation. Yeah, of the meditation slogans. The first slogan itself is first, train in the preliminaries. Second, regard all dharmas as dreams. Third, examine the nature of unborn insight. Fourth,
self-liberate
even the antidote. And then rest in the nature of Maya, the essence, right? Okay, so then we have third, when you realize that the myriad appearances manifest unceasingly and are spontaneously existent within the empty and lucidly clear state. Like the moon reflected in water, you have recognized the pointing out that an emptiness has spontaneous existence. Appearances manifest unceasingly and are spontaneously existent within the empty and lucidly clear state of appearances in mind. Like the moon reflected in water, you have recognized that emptiness has spontaneous existence. Like the reflection of the moon in the water, there's no moon in the water, and yet you see something in the water. You can't grab it. Through being merely spontaneously existent in that way, spontaneously existent clarity and awareness, emptiness. A nice little triad combined together. Does not move from unchanging great bliss, free from elaborations. Reminiscent of freedom from elaborations, when you are certain that arising and liberation are simultaneous. Like a snake uncoiling, that famous image, you have realized the pointing out that what is spontaneously existent is self-liberating. It doesn't need to be liberated by anyone or anything or any intention or act or process or technique. Rinpoche, in this other course we're going through the Profound Treasury, and Rinpoche says spontaneity is casualness. He calls it casualness. When you are certain that arising and liberation are simultaneous, like a snake uncoiling, you have recognized the pointing out that what is spontaneously existent is self-liberated. 520. That mind that is pointed out is the ordinary mind. Which is not like to say that there's some other mind, right? It's a way of referring to all of mind as being just the common experience that all sentient creatures, i.e. creatures that have minds, experience. That mind that is pointed out is the ordinary mind, which thinks all sorts of things. Yeah, mind is amazing and it can think of all sorts of things. It's keenly aware and vividly clear. That very mind is unified clarity and emptiness. Rob?
You just said creatures have minds. Isn't it really mind has creatures?
They do. That's right. Minds have creatures. Minds have legs, and they walk away by themselves. Reminds me of my mom when somebody would say something was lost. What do you think? It like grew legs and walked away. Your mind grows legs and walks away. That very mind is unified clarity and emptiness, great bliss. What is called emptiness, here we talked about this. What is called emptiness, endowed with the most sublime of manifestations, or Mahamudra. All of these are names for the same non-thing thing. Unified clarity, emptiness, great bliss, emptiness endowed with the most sublime manifestations of manifestations, or Mahamudra. Recognizing that is referred to as realizing Mahamudra, without any object of meditation whatsoever, and without being distracted for even an instant. Leave sharp awareness in its own place at home. You don't need to bring it with you. Do not create any hopes or fears, neither hoping for the best nor fearing the worst. Be totally relaxed and sustain the very nature of ordinary mind. In that instant, you will see Mahamudra, unified bliss emptiness, like the center of a clear, cloudless sky. Now shamatha and vipassana are united now, now. And your experiences and realizations are perfected. That certainly sounds pretty fruitional, since we have entered the path to liberation. Oh, entered? It sounded like we had finished it, didn't it, in the sentence just before? Experience and realization are perfected. And now you have entered the path to liberation. Therefore, you have accomplished your goal. Was our goal to enter the path of liberation or to complete the path to liberation? It's a little confusing, huh? Emptiness is the nature of mind. Clarity is its characteristic, and their unification is its essence. Oh my God, a totally different scheme, right? That's another scheme, yeah. It used to be the emptiness is the essence of mind, and its nature is clarity, and its manifestation is something or other.
Usually
Anyway,
the third one is the characteristic. Manifestation is the characteristics. Yeah, they totally flipped it around again.
it is free from all extremes of elaborations such as good and bad, arising, ceasing, and abiding, Republican and Democrat, existence and non-existence, impermanence and impermanence. It transcends speech or thought and is beyond identification. And yet there is something to be experienced. It is sharp, naked clarity, which is of the nature of bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality. It is the embodiment of great wisdom, the dharmata of the great self-arising of all phenomena, the basic abiding state of all knowables, correct cognition, thusness, equality, great bliss, tathagata garbha, prajnaparamita, omniscience, the ultimate, and emptiness endowed with the most sublime of manifestations. That's a long list of things that he's saying are synonymous. Since all phenomena are realized to be mind, it is chittamatra. Since it is free from any extreme or center, it is great, Madhyamaka. Since it is difficult for everyone to realize it, it is secret mantra. Since it destroys all confusion, it is the Vajrayana. Because it beholds the heart of the Buddhas, i.e. Buddha nature, it is called the Dharmakaya. In brief, now you have recognized the pointing out of Mahamudra. Great bliss, equality free from elaborations, non-dual wisdom, what is free from the elaborations of dualistic perception. This hovers above those whose devotion has struck the vital point. It circles those who are insatiable in their supplications. It descends into those who have truly received blessings, not hidden and not beyond direct perception. It is your innate quality, naked and unobscured. Now that you have recognized this pointing out, you have arrived at ground of Mahamudra, seen the essence of path Mahamudra, and determined resultant Mahamudra. Sustain this with joy. You have now made your attainment of a human body meaningful. You have entered the path to liberation and brought samsara to an end. This is excellent. It is important to rejoice and to cultivate this over a long period. Look at Cynthia's screen. That's great. Do that again. Yay, celebrate. It's important to rejoice and cultivate this over a long period. So you have entered the path of liberation and brought samsara to an end. So that is sometimes how path of seeing is described, that it's the end of samsara, and it's the genuine entering into the path. In the early tradition, entering the path was like a very high level experience. We think of entering the path as like, oh, starting to meditate, taking refuge, or some such thing. Those are the pointing out instructions based on looking at stillness and movement, which point out that appearances are mind. Mind is empty. Emptiness has spontaneous existence, and that what is spontaneously existent is self-liberating, as found in the texts on Mahamudra, and pointing out the Dharmakaya, which is the ninth Karma Bhavancha, Dorje's other texts, he being the author of this one. Maintain your practice of them continuously. You must take them to the end, making sure that they become part of your mind stream and are not just a patch of theoretical understanding. So, entering the path, it's liberation, and you must follow it to the end, which is omniscience of a Buddha.
Derek,
Yes.
the sentence that Cynthia, that we all liked, there's a similar sentence in the Nangdro, the Kagyu liturgy that I love of, may we bring all sentient beings to the state of supreme, unsurpassable, complete, great enlightenment.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of beings. Wow. Yeah, there you go. Rising up bombs.
Well, I thought of it as rockets, like
There you go.
vehicles for all this.
Taking off. That's it. A rocket for everybody. Let's see. That was the 8th session. That was a good session. Congratulations, everyone. That was a good session. Those are the pointing out instructions for the main practices of shamatha vipassana. First, there are the techniques for looking. Then, the pointing out instructions are given collectively, one after the other, in accordance with the overall development of experiences. Alternatively, the pointing out instructions can be given one by one in accordance with each experience that develops. Here, without utilizing many words, the ways to look are grouped together. The pointing out instructions are also arranged all together in a progressive manner that corresponds to the resolution of doubts and the signs in meditation, like an alphabetical list or checklist. I wrote this in keeping with the timing and way experiences and realizations typically develop. If the pointing out instructions are given at the beginning, people can become complacent about them and turn into jaded Dharma experts. Since I fear that such persons will never develop anything in their mind stream, the pointing out instructions should be given as they are laid out here to eliminate that possibility. Is he saying that Trungpa Rinpoche is wrong? How do you interpret this? And it concludes the main practice. Trungpa Rinpoche gives the pointing out instruction first, right?
Well, it depends on what you consider first.
Who's on first?
I don't know. On third. I mean, you're saying first, he gave it first in the context of Vajrayana practice, but he gave lot of shamatha vipassana instruction before that that would be cultivating people's at least a little bit of understanding, maybe. Anyway, it's, obviously there were lots of different ways that there's lots of different skillful means. And I think he's talking about, I, I guess you could say, is he talking to Mahasiddhas here, or is he talking to people like us who might use these both as tools for ourselves and for working with others, in which case we shouldn't take huge liberties with them. But a Mahasiddha perhaps can take liberties with the order.
A Mahasiddha can take liberties with the order. I like that. We're talking about of a different order there. Different order of order. This concludes the main practices. Conclusion, part 3. 1. Enhancement. Oh, I thought we were done. Jeez. There's more? Oh, God, okay. During meditative equipoise, if your mindfulness becomes unfocused and not wandering, leave it for a bit. Leave your mindfulness at the door. During post-meditative attainment, when you're distracted, you should alternate between meditative equipoise and sustaining non-distraction. That's a little bit of a contradictory statement. During post-meditative attainment, when you're distracted, you should alternate between non-distraction and meditative equipoise. During your contemplations on death and impermanence, the mind thinking, at death, body, speech, and mind die, should identify the nature of death and the mind at the time of death. Seeing that death is merely designated by the mind, you are freed from any notions of permanence or impermanence. By contemplating the deficiencies of samsara in a similar way, you will know that samsara and nirvana are like nearby mountains and faraway mountains in a dream. When cultivating heartfelt love and compassion with the understanding that all sentient beings have been your parents, and when cultivating bodhicitta from aspiring and engaging up through realizing its ultimate fruition, recognize their natures and rest without contrivance. By remaining in the recognition that the essence of brilliant bodhicitta, the manifestation, is free from elaborations, with nothing to do, emptiness and compassion are inseparable. That's a little bit of a challenging section, right? It's clearly talking about sort of bringing together compassion and experience. To go back to the beginning of that paragraph, when cultivating heartfelt love and compassion with the understanding that all sentient beings have been your parents, which is the traditional scheme in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, and when cultivating bodhicitta, from aspiring and engaging up through realizing its ultimate fruition. So there's ultimate and relative bodhicitta, and relative bodhicitta has aspiring and engaging. Recognize their natures and rest without contrivance. It's a little bit unclear whose natures we're recognizing. Is it the sentient beings, or is it the aspiring and the engaging? But in the next sentence is by remaining in the recognition that the essence of brilliant bodhicitta, so presumably The sentence before, recognize their natures and rest without contrivance, was the two types of bodhicitta. By remaining in the recognition that the essence of brilliant bodhicitta, the manifestation, is free from elaborations, with nothing to do, emptiness and compassion are inseparable. There's nothing to do, and yet there's unceasing bodhisattva activity. During the generation process, which is the path of the Vaz Abhisheka, one of the four Abhishekas. So this is referring to development stage practice. In Vajrayana, visualize yourself as the Yidam, using any one of the four rituals for visualization. In Vajrayana, there's different types of ways that you generate yourself as a deity, basically ranging from elaborate to very unelaborate ways of generating yourself as the deity. When meditating that the environment and beings are deities and sounds are mantras, look at their clarity and their nature. So in other words, how to bring Mahamudra practice into visualizations practice, development stage practice. Experience the inseparability of all of the things that we're visualizing as emptiness and clarity. Look at their clarity and their nature as emptiness. Nature referring to emptiness, presumably. Those beings free from thought, clarity, nature, deities, sounds, mantras, environments. Those being free from thought is the practice of unifying the generation and perfection processes. So the culmination of generation stage practice is called the completion stage practice, and that's where we bring everything to its culmination, into its fundamental nature.
Well, in terms of practice, then, like at Nalanda Bodhi, we're always doing guru yoga with the practice.
Nice.
Which is just a form of generating.
Right. And which guru are you uniting with?
We're uniting our root guru with ourselves. We put him above our head, and then bring him down in, and then we do the Mahamudra practice itself.
Nice.
So we start with guru.
Yeah.
So now when I'm doing these meditations, I try to always include that element.
Yeah, that's great. That's nice. Meditate joining the generation process with Mahamudra and luminosity. So even as you're generating the visualization of the Guru on top of your head, join that with Mahamudra and luminosity. At all times, when you're walking, moving around, lying down, texting, sitting at your computer, or talking, sitting or talking, recognize the very nature of whatever occurs and mix it with Mahamudra. Carry a blender at all times. And let's see, we're just about out of time. Let's see if we can finish this section, this one-pointed practice of the inseparable generation and perfection processes, or inseparable shamatha and vipassana, is the excellent conduct. So there seems to be an implication that generation is shamatha and perfection is vipassana in that sentence, which is not an unusual or uncommon or unheard of implication. When that has been stabilized, to practice with awareness in dangerous, isolated areas, keeping your view, meditation, and conduct concealed is secret conduct. Dangerous, isolated places. It's easier to find dangerous, non-isolated places, but isolation is pretty hard these days. When you have stabilized that to the point where you're undistracted in those circumstances, mix your practice with distractions by going where many people gather. Integrating that as your path is group conduct, which has 3 levels: greater, intermediate, and lesser. So go to Grand Central and practice Mahamudra. Bring a little stool, like one of those folding stools or something, so you can sit there and practice. Or just sit on the steps, I guess. Which has 3 levels: greater, intermediate, and lesser, distinguished by degrees of stability or the lack of stability. The greater level does not have definite signs, but once the greater degree of the path of preparation has been achieved, we just found out what path we're on. If you practice with elaborations, adopt the attire of a heruka. Once the greater degree of the path of preparation has been achieved, so the greater degree, that wording would generally refer to the second 2 of the 4 stages of the path of preparation, which is the second path. If you practice with elaborations, meaning if you practice development stage or what's called generation stage here, then you should adopt the attire of a heruka. How do herukas dress? Anyone?
If at
They
all.
wear jeans. Do they wear jeans?
If at all, maybe tiger skins or something.
Suits? Naked? They dress naked, or they wear
Like,
tiger skins, or they wear 3-piece suits, or maybe turbans. Maybe
Chains with skulls on them.
chains, whips and chains with
Skulls,
skulls, like
right?
sort of goth, like being goth, right?
And they got purbas and
Yeah,
vajras and
yeah.
eagle,
things
eagle
you
scimitars, you know.
nobody nobody would give you a hard time walking around New York with that, right? On the subway. Okay. Do not think that some things are to be eaten and others not. Eat everything indiscriminately. About cleanliness or filth, faults or virtues. That's a hard one. Cleanliness and filth, right? Faults or virtues mixed with intense situations and practice. Go to rallies, go to demonstrations, go to like Trump rallies, right? Oh my God, what kind of practice? That would be intense practice, wouldn't it? Going to a Trump rally? What do you say we all do that? Go to the next one in this area. No, I see some no's.
I'd have to
That's,
travel a long way to find one in this area.
yeah, there's not much going on in this area either. We'd all have to travel. Let's see, where were we? Gradually, you will progress from the path of preparation to the attainment of the path of seeing. From your own perspective, since you are victorious over Mara's mental afflictions in the Hinayana, you are victorious in all directions. From the perspective of others, through your greater degree of group conduct, you are of immense benefit to sentient beings. Interesting statement there. through group conduct were of immense benefit to sentient beings. That's engaged Buddhism, I guess. That's an
Well,
interesting take.
this group conduct is the word that they used for this stuff above.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd, isn't it, that this type of practice, it's sort of like some of this almost sounds like sort of the crazy wisdom sort of
Oh,
practice.
totally. Yeah, totally.
I guess I wouldn't have thought that that was necessarily at that, as you mentioned, to this path of preparation. I don't know.
Yeah. Thus, conduct is developed by Mahamudra itself. The practice of individuals of the highest abilities has no need of enhancement because it is free from an object of meditation and a meditator. For those not like that, there are many means of enhancement to be learned from the Guru's oral instructions. Those are the ways to enhance your experiences and realizations by joining Mahamudra practice with alternating between meditative equipoise and post-meditative attainment, with the paths of the common jhanas, the mantra system, and the 4 types of conduct. Practicing those with perseverance will bring enhancement. Okay, 4 types of conduct, anyone?
That's the homework for next week, right?
That's
No,
the
it's here, it's here, it's here.
enriching and the pacifying and the magnetizing and the
Probably. It
and the
should be in
destroying,
the,
except for I don't think it's in that order.
Aren't they
but it
just
should be
talking
in
about the
the
types of
glossary.
conduct above?
I
They were
don't know. It
talking.
should be. Find it in the table in the back of.
They mentioned that they had the group, the secret, the excellent, and I don't know what the first one was.
It is in the back.
Thank you. Page 647. 4
Right.
types of conduct. Moonbeams has 2 lists of 4 types of conduct. First, excellent, secret or hidden conduct. Conduct of discipline with awareness, and conduct that is victorious in all directions. I think we just went through that. Excellent is 1, secret hidden conduct is 2, discipline with awareness is 3, and victorious in all directions is 4. Second, conduct for beginners, conduct of mastering wisdom, conduct of greatly mastering wisdom, and conduct of liberation. Dispelling the darkness of ignorance lists excellent conduct, secret conduct, group conduct, and dyads. Just kidding, just kidding. Don't freak out, just kidding. Group conduct and conduct that is victorious in all directions. There are other versions of these 4 elsewhere. Anyway, so that was the first session of the conclusion, and the conclusion concludes itself for many pages. Oh my God. Okay. Hopefully we get through that next week, because next week I believe is our last session, and maybe we'll get a little time to go through to look at the summary. Anyway, thank you so much for your conduct and all of your intentions, past and victorious in all directions, and your perseverance and dedication, and your sense of humor, most of all. Let us dedicate the accumulation of virtue. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. From the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigton's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you. Stay cool.
Bye-bye.
Survive. See you next week.
Bye. Thank you.